Message today will be titled, or this week will be titled, I gotta sit by my mic here, Pushing Down Pillars of Wickedness. Okay. If the Supreme Court doesn't have the moral courage to hear the case of voter fraud, whatever, there's a lot of different avenues that could lead to the Supreme Court. But if they don't listen to it and overturn the fraudulent election results, I don't believe that Donald Trump will just sit down and take it and say, okay, I accepted defeat. The Supreme Court wouldn't listen to our case, so I'm just going to go quietly away, and that'll be my legacy. I just don't think he can do that. I mean, how can he preside? How can he be the president that presides over, which seems to be the official overthrow of America? I mean, if they can get away with cheating on an election and everybody knows it and does nothing about it, then we don't have a free country anymore. We're done. We're done as a country, because we will never have another election where where it'll be legitimate. It'll always be, we have fake news right now, right? Well, we will always have fake elections as well, and we'll have a fake republic and fake freedom. So, again, if he just walks away from this, his legacy will be, again, presiding over, everybody will remember him as the president that didn't protect America when America was being taken over. And his personality doesn't strike me as a type that would allow that to happen. I just don't think he's going to let that happen. We'll see what happens, but I just think he's got to do whatever it takes and make whatever sacrifice is necessary. I mean, I think I think this is a fight to the death for him, because if he doesn't stand the gap and tries to just go away and so forth, the liberal left and the deep state, they're going to go after him and destroy him and his family anyways. So he's only got one option, and that's to win. That's to overcome the enemies. Another point here I'm going to make before we get into a few scriptures. Besides it not being in his character to go away quietly, what else would there be for him to accomplish? I mean, I've listened to some of his audiobooks and things like that. He's a guy that wants to accomplish great things, and sometimes might be because of a little bit of pride, and sometimes it's just he's just motivated and geared towards wanting to achieve something. So he's a very highly energetic person. And so if he doesn't accomplish protecting America in the time that America needs somebody to step up, I don't think there would be anything left for him to accomplish in life. I think anything else that he would do would seem meaningless, and it would seem like I'm a failure. What else would be as great? What other great accomplishment could you be working towards after not doing or not accomplishing the preservation of America? So anyways, there was a man who many of you are probably familiar with, who the enemies of God's people hated just as much as they hate Donald Trump. They hated him with a passion. And this man actually enjoyed taunting his enemy, a lot like Donald Trump likes doing. He likes playing with them, toying with them. And this man also achieved a great deal of victories against his enemies as well. And they were very frustrated because they couldn't stop this man, okay? And eventually, it's just interesting, this man, and you're going to find out who it is in a minute, the Philistines thought they had defeated him. They finally captured him, and thought it was the end of the game, okay? So I'm going to just read a few scriptures from the book of Judges chapter 16. And after Delilah betrayed Samson, that's who we're talking about. I know most of you probably figured that out. After Delilah betrayed Samson to the Philistines, this is what happens. And she said, "The Philistines be upon thee, Samson." And he awoke out of his sleep and said, "I will go out as at other times before and shake myself." And he wist not that the Lord was departed from him. Okay. Now Delilah, interestingly, You could see her as a type of many things. You could almost see her as a type of the Republican Party who were trying to betray Donald Trump time after time after time. They are trying to work with the deep state, trying to work with the Democrats to bind Donald Trump. And they've been unsuccessful up until now. And I'm not saying that they're successful right now either. Verse 21, but the Philistines took him and put out his eyes and brought him down to Gaza and bound him with fetters of brass and he did grind in the prison house. So the Philistines, again, like I said, Donald Trump can't lose. Samson lost. What did they do to Samson? They finally, he finally surrendered himself by telling his secret about his hair. And they didn't just leave Samson alone. They gouged out his eyes. And now this is what they're going to do to him. Howbeit the hair of his head began to grow after he was shaven. Then the lords of the Philistines gathered them together for to offer a great sacrifice unto Dagon their god, and to rejoice. For they said, our God hath delivered Samson, our enemy, into our hand. And I cannot help but think of the arrogance of the left. They always think that they're going to win, that they're on the winning team, and no matter what any of us do, in other words, to them, resistance is futile, okay? We can't do anything about it. That's their attitude. They will get us one way or the other. The Philistines were the same way. Okay, both worship false gods. The leftists today are the same as the Philistines. Openly and secretly, they are both pagans. The leftists on the looking from the outside, they openly worship government. They believe in socialism, and instead of being one nation under God, they want to reject God, and so on. I'm not going to go in and try to prove that. All of you guys know that the left are definitely the anti-biblical party. The leftists are. Verse 24, and when the people saw him, they praised their God, for they said, our God hath delivered into our hands our enemy, and the destroyer of our country, which slew many of us. Now think about that. That's why I think there's such a strong parallel between Samson and Donald Trump. Not in character, in deeds, and all kinds of things. There are so many parallels. Even his hair. You look at his hair. Donald Trump's known for his hair. Well, Samson was known for his hair, right? Donald Trump has never drinking alcohol in his life. Well, Samson, being under the vow of the Nazarite from birth, never had a drop of alcohol. So there are many other parallels that I think we went into. Damien and I, way back in 2016, we did some prophecy updates or prophecy discussions, and we looked at many of those parallels. But anyways, so Samson gave them a lot of trouble, and they're happy that they finally have him now. And it came to pass, when their hearts were merry, that they said, call for Samson, that he may make us sport. And they called for Samson out of the prison house and made them sport, and they sat him between the pillars. So now they gouged out Samson's eyes. They have him in prison. They have him bound. And now they're all sitting around worshiping their false god and mocking Samson. Could anybody see the Democrats doing this? The leftists? Well, just turn on CNN or any other fake news network. They're ecstatic that Biden supposedly won the election. Okay. They're ecstatic. They think that Trump's gone, and once there have even been statements by people, and I can't remember their names. I think a congresswoman basically said that anybody who voted for Donald Trump, once Biden gets in, we ought to be punishing all those people. We ought to punish them for being the way we are. So don't think they're going to just let Donald Trump go if he doesn't pull this off. Verse 26, and Samson said unto the lad that held him by the hand, suffer me that I may feel the pillars whereupon the house standeth, that I may lean upon them. Now think about that. These pillars, as we're going to read about in a minute, on top of this is basically the government center, the temple, if you would, of these pagan elite, the Philistines, that were oppressing the Israelites for many years. And Samson there is right between them, and all of that wickedness rests on these two pillars that Samson is standing between. Verse 27, now the house was full of men and women, and all the lords of the Philistines. Now check that out. All the lords of the Philistines, all of their highest leaders were there. And they were upon the roof, and there were upon the roof about 3,000 men and women, and beheld while Samson made sport. Okay? You have everybody there, all of the political elite of the Philistines, all in one spot. And Samson called unto the Lord and said, O Lord God, remember me, I pray thee, and strengthen me. I pray thee not only this once, O God, that I may be at once avenged of the Philistines for my two eyes. Okay? If you know anything about Donald Trump, he's just like Samson in this respect. Samson, he always got people back. He was very vengeful. And a lot of Christians have a hard time with this. They say, well, Jesus wouldn't teach that. We're not, vengeance is the Lord, and we're supposed to just be soft, gentle people. Well, I wouldn't be, you want to be vengeful against the enemy, right? You don't want to be nice to the enemy. When you're in a war, either he kills you or you kill him, okay? That's the way it is. But even if that's not the case, even if Samson's flaw was his vengeful, a little bit of a vindictive attitude, God uses imperfect people to fulfill his plan, okay? And I think he used the character of Samson here. He knew Samson would continually fight against the Philistines and never give up because of his personality. So Samson prays that he can be avenged of the Philistines. And Samson took hold of the two middle pillars upon which the house stood, and on which it was borne up, of the one with his right hand and the other with his left. And Samson said, now check this out, let me die with the Philistines. And he bowed himself with all of his might, and the house fell upon the lords and upon all the people that were therein. So the dead, now check this out, so the dead which he slew at his death were more than they which he slew in his life. Now, I think that's pretty significant. That's why I said I don't see any way out for Donald Trump at this point. I think if they do take him out, he's going to do everything in his power to take them all down with him. If he's going to die, figuratively or literally, they're all going to die as well, figuratively or literally. In other words, I think he probably has all the goods on all of these evil people and probably has a way to push down those pillars of wickedness as a last resort if he must do it. Now notice this was Samson's last resort. He was forced into this. He was kind of tricked into it actually, but he was forced into it. This is all he had left. Okay? He was bound. He was desperate. And there was only one thing he could do to be avenged, and that was to kill himself along with the Philistines. And so, anyways, I think it'll be very interesting to watch. It won't be very long before we know. I mean, we're looking at, a lot of people are saying January 6th. January 20th is the official inauguration of the next president. I personally feel that Donald Trump will be our next president. I'm not prophesying that. It seems like he's pretty calm and collective, and he's never been wrong yet, when going against the enemies. Everybody, all the Republicans thought he probably colluded with the Russians, during the Russian Gate, the conspiracy theory for the Russians there. And on the list goes. When he comes out and he says something like Obama was spying on me, people start laughing at him and saying, "What, is he crazy? Obama didn't spy on him." Why is he making all these wild accusations? And then we find out later, yes, Obama was spying on him. So I have no reason to doubt that he's not going to be able to pull this off. I personally don't feel that God would use him, which I really believe he has, for these last 4 years to do everything he's done just to let him fade away into the night and go away quietly. And we go back to the status quo, or worse, we go into all-out communism or socialism. So does anybody have any questions or comments?
Yeah, it is extremely frustrating. But I saw somebody made a post, I don't know who it was, but saying the same thing, that they have all this evidence and they have all this just evidence, a ton of evidence that they're sitting on. And I don't know, there's a part of me that says, well, how long are you going to sit on it? And then there's a part of me, maybe they do. But one thing I do know is that if he does pull it off, whatever way he does it, it's not only going to be great that he's the president, but it's going to open up a whole nother can of maybe civil war.
Mm-hmm.
You thought George Floyd riots were bad. I mean,
right.
It's gonna get crazy, and who knows what that'll then turn into. But so him winning, and it doesn't bother me if that's what's gonna have to happen, because he did win. I'm 100% convinced. Mm-hmm. I've heard the evidence from several states, even Nevada. He won Nevada by a ton. If they get rid of all the people that voted that were dead, and all the people that double voted and they don't live in the state, and there was a Senate hearing just recently. Not many people knew about it, especially because the media didn't cover it, but they went over a lot of this stuff, and nothing has come of it yet, but they're talking about it at least.
Right.
And one of them was in Nevada, and they had all this evidence of all these votes that shouldn't be counted, and if you take away those votes that shouldn't have been counted, Trump takes Nevada by a lot.
Right.
Maybe not a lot, but enough.
Yeah, I definitely think he's holding back some cards and hasn't played them all yet. He's got a trump card, I think. Yes, Jason.
A couple of things, like that idea of him wanting to get even or whatever. I think it is actually moral. It's not like if our neighbor does something wrong to us and we try to get even with them. He's going up against people that are possessed by, they're of the devil. So
right.
He's literally fighting evil. So whatever he needs to do, or whatever names he needs to call them
yeah.
out, I think is justified. Also, the idea if this truly is all or nothing, and he can't make a deal to, like people say, well, if he just makes a deal and concedes, then they'll kind of make it easy on his family. Basically what you're saying is they may say that, but they don't mean it. So
right.
If he really knows that it's all or nothing, it seems like he already knows he's got this in the bag, because you put yourself in his position with everything to lose. Have you ever seen anyone as calm and collected and it just completely at peace and
right.
ease? It's like he's just watching and receiving guidance. And then the last thing that is kind of comforting in all this, but eventually it's like we do want to see things come out. Like people have said that had he just won the election or whatever, sure, he'd be in power for 4 more years, but none of this would have been exposed. Now, just and even if they gave out all the information and evidence, a few weeks in, still not everybody would have been exposed, because now more and more Republicans are showing that they're on the other team, and each week things go on. There's more and more, so it's just like he's basically forcing everybody to put their cards on the table,
right?
And he's warned people, like with certifying these elections, do you really want to do this? Because I wouldn't do it if I was you. Basically giving them a warning, knowing that they're facing criminal charges by validating these fraudulent elections.
Right.
And they're going ahead and doing it anyway. So he's kind of giving them a chance, but at least I'm hoping that this plays out that way. So
yeah, you make a good point. It seems like he always gives people a chance, but he also gives people enough rope to hang themselves if they don't take that chance. And it seems to have been his pattern since taking office, you know. So yeah, I completely agree with everything you said there. There is a time to take vengeance on your enemy in battle versus taking vengeance on your neighbor who hurt your feelings, right? Yeah. Do we have any live comments, questions, or comments?
Just a couple. Rolling Rock says, "Don't give up because it looks like he is letting the bad guys think they won." So kind of what you were just saying.
Okay.
And Deanne says Trump is a fighter and he's not giving up. And I agree.
So how would he do this? A lot of people are probably wondering, and it's been discussed. It is my understanding that he could enact the what is that? The Insurrection Act, right? Or institute that, declare martial law, and set up military tribunals and prosecute those who were found guilty of voter fraud and either do a new election or there's a lot of different avenues, I guess, different paths that I've heard.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Well, one thing to Damien's point, with all the stuff with the riots going on, we have to remember that the president respected states' rights, so he did not intervene. Now, if something were to happen, he wins, and they tried to have the riots, he already has National Guard in all these swing states ready to go. And when the National Guard was activated, it took very little time for them to put everything in order.
Right.
So I think, that's their threat. They want people scared of these riots, but I think they would end very, very quickly if it did happen.
I think it's I think the left is using a tactic of war. You act like you're strong when you're weak. And I think you're right about the riots. Everybody's scared of, they're going to, these riots are going to get out of control. And I think, they'll burn down some stuff, but I don't think it's something that they're not going to be able to go into every neighborhood, every town, and disrupt everything. It'll be, it would likely be in places like Minneapolis, where it'll be confined, and then they try to spread the fear that way, by a few, big blowups. But you think about it. You think about what's the alternative? What, we don't want riots? We fought a civil war. We fought a revolutionary war. I mean, if this is a wartime, in my mind, yes.
Didn't you say one of the justices' reason for not taking the case was because they were fearful of the riots?
That was an initial report, and people are disputing whether that account was. There was I think it was an elector in Texas, said that somebody overheard the justices arguing, and they said that they heard Justice Roberts say they didn't want to take the case because of rioters. They're afraid of rioters. But people are saying they haven't even met in person yet. They've only been over meeting,
Skype.
digitally or Skype or through the internet. But even though the story might not be true, it probably is true. It might not have happened exactly that way, but I guarantee,
That's on their mind.
yeah, Chief Justice Roberts seems to be very compromised. Seems to be afraid. Whenever he has to decide on something that actually matters, he always sides with the liberals. So there's something going on there.
Well, in regard to him, there has to be something, because someone like Lynn Wood would not call him out.
Right.
The most powerful person in our country, arguably, if there wasn't legitimate evidence.
Right. Yeah, I think there's got to be something. But were there any other questions or comments from you or you guys or anybody online? Greed?
I think it's a lot of these people that are turning toward the left, that have been on the right, somebody's paying them. You know what I mean? Money does a lot.
Oh, right.
The greed and if somebody offered you $100 million that's a lot of money, These elite people, the 1%ers, they're involved.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that, now that you bring that up, I was looking up or reading about Bill Barr.
Mm.
And the only thing that makes sense to me is that somebody got to him with enough money, because he had all this stuff that was going down before the election, you know, that he was gonna hold all these people accountable for all the, you know, the Russiagate and, you know, all the way to the Clintons and whatever they. And then I was listening to Rush Limbaugh when Trump was on before the election, and the news came out that Barr said, well, none of this is gonna come out until after the election, and Trump said, if that's true, he said, this is the first I've heard of it, but if that's true, I'm pissed, or whatever he said. And he's gonna look into it, and well, of course, that's what happened, nothing came out. Well, now, I think it's true, Bill Barr is resigning, and none of his reports or his investigation is coming out. And,
Right.
He seemed to be on our side, but to be doing what he's doing, he had to have been paid off. He had to. Why else wouldn't
Or
you?
he's scared for his life.
There's also there, and I don't know. This is pure speculation. There's also, you know, a way to control your opposition. Maybe, you know, Bill Barr came in with I'm sure with the expectation that he was going to end the Russiagate and get things moving. Maybe they knew that it was a no-win situation, and let's just say if Barr was in on it from the beginning, maybe it was his way to get in there and control other things, knowing that they weren't going to continue on with the fake Russian scandal, but he could at least get in there and protect people from any further harm.
But Barr did take Durham, who was limited to, I believe, Connecticut, and he gave him authorization now that he can investigate nationwide.
Take over
Okay.
his investigation, basically.
Well, yeah, so
Okay.
He has jurisdiction now to go anywhere that the evidence leads.
Okay.
So
Yeah, and there's others. You know, there's a lot of speculation. There's other other people speculating that it's a strategic resigning, and it can enable him to do other things. So I don't know.
Yeah, I heard that he could testify because he resigned.
He could be a witness.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, I heard that too. It's so, you know, we're at the point right now. I think we're all uneasy because we want to see at least one prominent person finally go to prison for all of this fraud, and it's hard to know who to trust. I mean, yes.
Well, like you said, if this isn't resolved, we don't have a country anymore.
Mhm.
Because if you can't have a fair and legal election, there's no country. But it's the same thing for justice. People need to see justice so that they understand there's only one justice. There's not justice for us and then a separate non-justice for those in power.
Right.
And so whatever these people, they need to be convicted and they need to receive the sentence that's due based on their conviction, so
Right.
that people can see this truly is a nation of law and order and treason.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really do believe that, in biblical law, God said that, as far as the death penalty is concerned, there were certain crimes that required the death penalty, and that was so that all of the rest of the nation would see, hear, and fear and not do these things. So I really do believe that if somebody is found guilty of treason, the law, the United States law at this time is death penalty for treason. And I think there should be public executions for those guilty of treason. I know a lot of people are scoring. We're so soft these days. We are so soft as a people. We're going to get into that in our next study, Jeremiah. But we've become so soft and so wimpy when it comes to these things. Public execution, we can't do that. That used to be done in the old days when people were very just kind of, barbaric, But that's what God's law commands. Execute them so that all can see, hear, and fear and not do these evil things. Anyways, anybody got anything else? All right. We will take a 5-minute break. Those of you watching us online will